Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to our ongoing Torah conversations. Well, we did manage to get past last week's really serious problem as to what should be our proper greeting. Was it Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, or was it just Shabbat Shalom? Well, we resolved that last week. But now, on May 4th, every Jew in the world can greet every other Jew in the world by saying Shabbat Shalom. Fine, that problem is over, but spoiler alert, we're not quite out of the woods yet. Rabbi Levi Kelman in Jerusalem posted a careful explanation as to what is going on around our world. Now, we know from last week that Orthodox and most conservative congregations outside of Israel celebrate Pesach, Passover, for 8 days, while in Israel and in most Reformed congregations everywhere else, Pesach is celebrated for just 7 days. Kicker. This means that last Shabbat, those who observed Pesach for 8 days had a different Torah reading than those who celebrated Passover for just 7 days. And those dominoes are still falling. So, on May 4th, this Shabbat, everybody in Israel is reading the Sedra Kedoshim, Leviticus 19:1 to 20:27. But in most synagogues in the Diaspora, we will be reading the preceding Sedra, Leviticus 16:1 and following, the Sedra known as Acharemot. So these two huge communities are totally out of sync with one another, and we're going to stay out of sync until August 2019. Only when we get to the first chapter of Deuteronomy in our weekly readings will the Jewish world finally be knitted back together. Very, very disconcerting. But what about us, this conversation? Last week, we talked about the Sedra that was read in Israel, not the Diaspora assignment. We're going to have to catch up. So both this week and next week, we're going to focus on the Sedra known as Kedoshim, that magnificent holiness code. And after that, our conversations will follow the Diaspora assignments, and the break will only be Israel, Diaspora. Okay, got it. Now, one more calendar thought. This Shabbat falls between Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, and Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day. Many Reformed congregations call this Shabbat Shabbat Tekumah, the Sabbath of renewal, of standing upright, when the Jewish people rise up from the flames kindled by those who sought to totally obliterate our presence from off the face of the earth, and prepare to joyously celebrate the rebirth of Jewish independence brought about by the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, She'echiyanu, V'kiyamanu, V'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Praised are you, O eternal God, ruler of the universe, who has kept us in life and sustained us and allowed us to celebrate this wonderful event. To our text, Holiness Code this week and next week. Leviticus 19:1 and following. The words at the beginning here are really very familiar to us. Kedoshim tihiyu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. God tells Moses to tell the Israelites, be holy, for I, the eternal your God, am holy. Some of the key details of that call to holiness are spelled out. Revere your parents. Keep the Sabbath. Make certain that the poor have enough to eat. Don't steal. Don't defraud. Don't seek vengeance. And then the capstone, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love the other as yourself. Now there are dozens of specific rules, mitzvot, in this Sedra. As a matter of fact, the count seems to be 51 in all, as to what one must do to be able to reach the level of Kedusha, of holiness. Like respect the elderly. I like that one. Don't put a stumbling block before the blind. I like that one. And don't cheat in business. But we are still left with so many questions. How can one person possibly perform all of those mandates, all of those mitzvot? If we must perform each and every one of those approximately 51 mitzvot in this Sedra, and that's the only way to reach holiness, then holiness is clearly out of the reach for most of us mere mortals. Actually, this text can appear to endorse what later on is referred to in the Talmud as a forbidden act. We are forbidden to place religious burdens upon the people that are too heavy for them to bear. You can't tell people to do that which they simply cannot do. Is that what our Sedra is trying to pull off here? The rabbis were not blind to this challenge. With the first words of our Sedra, Moses was told to proclaim the challenges of Kedoshim. El kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Moses is to speak to the entire Israelite community. God wants, according to the rabbis, the sum total of all that our people does to be holy, to be kadosh. The message here is that whatever we undertake, whatever we do as individuals, each of us should strive through those acts to put a piece of holiness in place, so that collectively, not individually, collectively, we can be a holy people, even though not any single one of us may ever achieve the level of holiness. From the rabbi's perspective, the pursuit of holiness is a group act. Isn't that great? We are a single community. We are a people. We are more than just a gathering of individuals who share our faith. We are responsible for each other. Kol Yisrael arevim zabazeh. When one of us falls from what we might call the path of righteousness, and the stain of that misdeed marks all of us. I'm not going to go into a listing of where we have actually felt that phenomenon in recent years where one Jewish person's act stains the Jewish people. But suffice it to say, we know that this is true. Holiness is a collective pursuit, not a matter just for the solitary individual. This is how we should teach our children. Holiness as a collective pursuit. And this is how we should live. That's one question. Second question. The general principles as to how we should live are clearly spelled out here, right? Respect our parents. Good. Don't insult the deaf. That's another important one for me. Treat strangers as the homeborn. Don't live in imitation of the nations around us. But think about it. Those principles are really not very specific. One example, respect our parents, right? Always, in all circumstances. What if our parents tell us to steal? What if our parents tell us to cheat? Rabbi Shlomo Riskin quotes Nachmanides, Ramban, who explains how even if a person totally practices the principles of our text, they might still fall far short of what is required of us and of what holiness really means. Stay with me. There is a concept in Jewish ethical teaching known as Naval Bereshut HaTorah. Fascinating. One can behave repulsively even while acting within the parameters of the Torah. Naval Birshut HaTorah. How does that work? Easy. Think about it. We eat kosher food. Okay, great. But we fall into gluttony. We drink only kosher wines. Fine. Fine. But we also drink to excess. We make certain that our business practices follow the letter of the law. That's quite commendable. But we use our economic power in such a way as to impoverish our competitors and to cripple their enterprises. Naval Birshut HaTorah. We are following the written principle, and we are acting in a repulsive way. Ramban Nachmanides says that there has to be a meta halachic standard, like one quoted later on in Deuteronomy. We are to do hatov v'hayashar. As we fulfill all the commandments, we are to do that which is good and upright. We should follow pathways toward compassion and morality, sacred act by sacred act, step by step, and never satisfy ourselves by saying, well, at least I'm not violating the letter of the law. The standard for holiness is a meta-standard, embracing and containing all of the mandated specific behaviors, put it in English, 1613 mitzvot, in a broad setting of love and mutual respect, because that's how we bring our lives closer to the standards of holiness. Well, that's it for today. The Holiness Code, Kedoshim to you. We'll come back to it next week. Next week, we'll continue exploring this most uplifting and challenging and wonderful Sedra. We will see ourselves pursuing holiness as a people, and we will see ourselves as refusing to distort the standards that the Torah is asking us to accept. So have a wonderful Shabbat. And as part of our shared, united group pursuit of holiness, please hit share. Shabbat Shalom.